Hi guys, it's Mrs. Riley. I'm going to be reading chapter 18. It's called Joe. When I was a little kid, if I fell down and skinned my knee, my mom would kiss it and make it better. I thought it was magic. But I'm not a little kid anymore, and I don't believe in magic. I decided to let my mom drive me to school, but we don't talk. At least I don't. Dad won't be getting in until late tonight, she tells me. You won't see him until tomorrow morning. I'm not in a hurry. Not that I don't miss my dad when he's on the road. I do. Sometimes we watch sports together and just act like guys, burping and scratching and stuff. But it's been a while since we did that. Mom still hasn't said anything, but I'm positive I'm right about the reason he's coming home early. I know the drill. She's going to make us have a family meeting. I'll sit there saying nothing. My dad will tell me to man up. And when it's finally over, nothing will have changed. Mom will still be the lunch monitor. Dylan Sumreen will still be giving me a hard time about it. And 5th grade will still suck as much as it did before. Hey, Pud, not Puddy, Dylan says as I walk into room 506. He's standing by the door like he's been waiting for me. Lucy Mulligan giggles, which pretty much guarantees that the dumb joke will be following me around for a while. The funny thing about Lucy is that she and I used to be friends. We went to the same nursery school when we were little, and sometimes after school we'd even play together. She even had a sleepover at my house once when her mom and dad had to go out of town for a funeral. She wet the bed and cried. My mom put the dirty sheets in the washing machine, and Lucy made me promise that I wouldn't tell anyone at school about it, and I never did. Dylan is about to say something else, but then his dark eyes slide to the left, and there's that evil sparkle that I know so well. I turn around to see what he's looking at. Ravi has just arrived with his green backpack and iron blue jeans. For some reason, he's looking especially shrimpy today. His shoulders only come up to my belly button, which means I can actually look down and see the top of his head. He's wearing the whitest sneakers I've ever seen in my life, and he's holding a square metal box with flowers painted on it. What's in the box? Dylan asks him. Cookies, he says, for Mrs. Beam. I look at Ravi in his weird flat clothes holding his flowery little box of cookies and wonder if he realizes he's a zebra. Boys and girls, please take your seats, Mrs. Beam calls from the front of the classroom. Ravi walks up with her and her hands on the box. My mother has asked me to bring you these, she says. They're Indian cookies. How sweet! Indian cookies? Ravi nods. Homemade, he says. When Ravi isn't looking, Dylan puts his finger down his throat and makes a gagging sound. Lucy Mulligan giggles. Sometimes I wish they would just run off together and get married and put all of us out of misery. Please tell your mother thank you for the cookies, Ravi, says Mrs. Beam. I'll be sure to enjoy one night at home after dinner. Ravi turns and starts walking back to his desk. He looks happy, but I notice he's staring at my feet. He probably thinks I'm going to try to trip him. I wonder if he thinks I'm the one who swiped his mechanical pencils too. After she finishes taking the roll call, Mrs. Beam tells us to do silent reading until it's time to go to the gym. I pull out my book and turn to the place where I left off reading last night. I've only got a few more chapters to go, and I want to know how the story turns out. Dylan asks if he can go get a drink of water, and I can tell he's up to something. Sure enough, on the way back, he tosses a folded up piece of paper on my desk. I open it up, and there's a drawing of a bunch of people. Almost everyone is wearing a t-shirt that says, I'm with stupid on it. And under that, an arrow pointing to the left. There are only 2 exceptions. One is a really tall boy wearing giant shoes that look like boats. I'm stupid, it says on his shirt. Next to him is a woman in a striped apron holding a dirty diaper with a bunch of flies buzzing around it. Her shirt says, I'm stupid's mommy. Another day off to another sucky start. Chapter 19, Ravi. My day is getting better by the minute. First, Mrs. Beam had liked the non-Katis, then she was impressed when she noticed how far I had read ahead in Bud Not Buddy. Now it is time for gym class. I was junior school sports captain at Vidya Mandir last year, even though I was only in 4th grade. If American gym is anything like PE in India, then my troubles will soon be over. I looked down at my clean white shoes. Das Sir, my PE teacher at Vidya Mandir, would be pleased. Every day before class, he lined us up and first checked our shoes. They must be pure white, he insisted. Thanks to Amma and her polishing skills, mine were always as white as snow. Das Sir would sit in the shade of his favorite neem tree and tell us to start with some drills, stretching exercises, jumping jacks, one round of running. I was always finished first. Pramod a close second, and Ramaswamy, the poor sod, came dead last every time. He was slow, not only in reading, but at everything else as well, including running. Das Sir had no patience for him. Ramaswamy had such a big belly that when he tried to touch his toes, he would bend his knees and Das Sir would give him a whack with a neem twig. We all laughed our heads off when he howled. After the drills, before we played cricket, Das Sir would send Ramaswamy off with the girls to play throw ball or tennis or coco. The gym teacher at Albert Einstein Elementary School is Coach Victorine. He has a very funny nose, no mustache, and he dresses exactly like Mr. Das. White shirt, black tracksuit bottoms. I'm looking forward to impressing him and everyone else with my skills. Coach Victorine leads us onto the large grass field behind the school. He has a canvas bag containing several metal bats and some large yellow balls. I've never played American baseball, but I imagine it's a lot like cricket. I'm a little bit nervous, but how can it be hard? I expect we will begin with some drills and running, but instead, Coach Victorine chooses Dylan and a girl named Jasleen to be captains and tells them to pick their teams. Do the girls play too? I asked the boy standing next to me. He's the one who rides my bus, whose name is Tim, or Jim. Yep, he says. Playing against girls is going to be easy peasy. Jasleen picks first. She chooses a girl named Amy. I wave to Dylan to get his attention and then point to myself. I was first batsman at Vidya Mandir, I call out. I want him to know I won't let him down if he picks me. He chooses the boy named Robert instead. I was sure he would pick me first, but I remind myself that Dylan doesn't know anything about my athletic abilities or that I was champion cricketer. It's Jasleen's turn to pick. I'll take you, she says. At first, I think she's pointing at the girl standing in front of me, but instead, she picked me. I can't believe I'm going to play my first game of American baseball on a team made of girls. This is all Miss Frost's fault. If she hadn't made me go to the resource room yesterday, Dylan and I would have had lunch together. I would have told him about the Gold Cup I won last year for scoring 2 centuries in our final cricket game. He would have picked me first for his team today, and together we would have beaten the other team hollow. Jasleen chooses a few other boys for her team as well, so at least I'm not alone. Dylan will be surprised when he sees how well I play. I predict he will regret not picking me first. It's time to warm up. So I grab one of the bats and give it a good hard swing. Baseball bats are quite different from cricket bats, and I want to get a feel for it before the game begins. The next thing I know, Coach Victorine is screaming his head off at me. What have I done now? Chapter 20. Joe. Coach Victorine reminds me of a penguin. He has a long nose, a beak, and when he walks, he waddles. Line up, ladies and gentlemen, he tells us. I played Little League for 1 season when I was 7, but I wasn't any good at it. Even with my earplugs in, all that yelling was just too much for me. Plus, I'm pretty uncoordinated. As soon as the coach figured out that I couldn't hit or throw or catch a ball, I spent the rest of the season sitting on the bench, eating sunflower seeds. I didn't mind. I like sunflower seeds. I don't like playing baseball, but I like to watch it on TV. My dad is a Phillies fan, but I'm into the Boston Red Sox. They're epic. In gym class, instead of baseball, we play slow pitch softball. Dylan and Jasleen Arnado are the best hitters, but Amy Yamaguchi has mad skills too. Emily Mooney isn't bad either, which is surprising because she's white as marshmallow and so skinny her arms look like toothpicks. Jasleen picks first. I want Amy, she says. Amy Yamaguchi runs over and starts hugging her. This is baseball, girls, squawks Coach Victorine, not a slumber party. Ravi is pointing to himself, trying to get Dylan to pick him, but Jaslyn picks Ravi instead. He is so shocked, he looks like he's about to pass out. Jaslyn probably chose him because she feels sorry for him. Girls do junk like that. Dylan and Jaslyn go back and forth picking teams until finally Henry Futterman and I are the only ones left. Henry is as uncoordinated as I am. Plus, he plays the violin. So his mom wrote a note to Coach Victorine saying Henry's not allowed to climb a rope or catch a ball or anything else that might hurt his fingers. I'll take Futsie, says Jaslyn, pointing to Henry. So I end up in the last place on earth I want to be. Dylan's not too happy about it either. If we lose because of you, you're going to be sorry, Pud, he tells me. We start tossing the ball around a little to warm up, and all of a sudden, Coach Victorine starts yelling at Ravi. No rec specs, no ball, no exceptions. Excuse me, says Ravi. I don't understand. You can't wear your glasses when you play ball, kid. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. In India, I always wore my glasses when we played cricket, Ravi said. Well, in case you haven't noticed, this is New Jersey, kid. You need to go to the eye doctor and get yourself a pair of rec specs, like those. And he points to Henry, who's wearing a pair of prescription goggles instead of his regular glasses. Can you see without those things? Coach Victorine asks Ravi. Not very well, he says, pushing his glasses up with his thumb. Take your pick, kid. Sit on the bench or play without your glasses, says Coach. It's up to you. Ravi takes off his glasses and puts them in his pocket. I'll play, he says. Our team is up first. We do okay for a while, but then when the bases are loaded, I strike out and Dylan gets ticked off. Way to blow it, Pud, he says, grabbing his glove off the bench and stopping off to the pitcher's mound. Dylan Samreen does not like to lose. Amy leads off for the other team and she gets a hit. Emily and Jaslyn get hits too. So Ravi comes up with the bases loaded. He's squinting pretty hard as he steps up to the plate, and I notice he's holding his bat funny, down low, like a golf club. He swings and misses twice. But on the third pitch, he brings his bat up, catches a piece of the ball, and sends it foul. Good cut, says Coach Victorine. Jaslyn and the rest of her team go nuts, jumping up and down and screaming for Ravi to do it again. Even from far away, I can tell Dylan is up to something. When he turns his head to the side, I see the gleam in his eye. In slow pitch, the ball is supposed to come at the batter in a nice high arc, but Dylan winds up and pitches a fastball right at Ravi's head. Duck! I yell, but it's too late. Chapter 21, Ravi. Coach Victorine comes rushing over to help me. Get the first aid kit, he yells. Everyone crowds around. I check myself, but nothing is broken. There's no blood, just a painful spot on my shoulder where the ball struck me. A terrible thought suddenly occurs to me. My glasses. But when I reach into my pocket and pull them out, I'm relieved to see they're not broken either. What happened out there, Samreen? Asked Coach Victorine. You forgot what game we're playing. Sorry, Coach, Dylan said. The ball must have been wet or something. It just got away from me. I didn't mean to hit him, honest. It's nothing, I said, standing up and brushing myself off. Please, can I just bat again? But Coach Victorine wouldn't allow it. How about you take our young friend here down to the nurse's office so she can take a look at him, he tells Dylan. We don't want to take any chances. As Dylan and I walk to the nurse's office, it seems I do most of the talking. I have so much I want to say. Can you believe Mrs. Beam thinks I need special help? I laughed. Ridiculous. You saw my Vedic math. Does she think I'm like Ramaswamy? Who? Asked Dylan. He was a boy at my school in India who couldn't read. Does she think I'm like him? Or Bigfoot? All he did when we were in the resource room yesterday was talk about candy and look at sports magazines. Make sure to tell the nurse it was an accident, says Dylan. I didn't hit you on purpose. No worries, man. I'll tell him. Do you know Kapil Dev, the famous Indian cricketer? He came to Vidyar Mandir as the chief guest at all our sports day last year. My best friend, Pramod, and I had our pictures taken with him. When you come to my house, I'll show you. You could see all my trophies too, and Amma will make dosas for us. Our garden is so big. Maybe I can teach you how to play cricket, and you could teach me how to hit a home run. Dylan smiles at me and winks. I can hardly wait, he says. When we arrive at the nurse's office, Dylan reminds me once more to explain that he didn't hit me with the ball on purpose. Then he leaves and goes back to class. The nurse gives me an ice pack for my shoulder and tells me to lie down on the cot and rest. I close my eyes for a while, and when I open them up again, there's a girl in a green uniform standing in the doorway, holding my backpack and jacket. She's from my class, but I don't remember her name. Mrs. Beam told me to bring Ravi's stuff in class. He has to go home early, she tells the nurse. I'm fine, I said, sitting up. I don't need to go home. The bell rings, and fifth graders start coming down the corridor towards the lunchroom. The girl in the green uniform puts my things on a chair and leaves. Please, I beg the nurse, can I just go to lunch now? Nothing is going to prevent me from eating my lunch with Dylan Samreen. If you're sure you feel up to it, says the nurse, let me get you a fresh ice pack to take with you. It'll help keep the swelling down. The nurse takes so long preparing the ice pack, but by the time I get to the lunchroom, Dylan's already bought his lunch and is sitting at the table in the corner by the window, shooting straw papers with his friends. I look at the menu board on the wall. Today they're serving something called chili. I see someone eating a bowl of soup filled with red beans and tomatoes. In India, we call that kind of soup rajma. It's more of a North Indian dish, but Amma makes it sometimes anyway, adding plenty of cumin seeds and black pepper to make it spicy. Rajma is served with rice, but American chili is served with some kind of yellow bread that looks like cake. I have my tiffin box with me, but I grab one of the plastic trays anyway and tuck it under my arm. I have a plan I'm certain will help me fit in. Bigfoot is sitting at the table where I sat on my first day. I walk past him straight to Dylan's table. I recognize some of the other faces. Robin Princenthal, Keith Campbell, Tim, Jim, Tom Dinkins, and the redheaded boy called Jax. Excuse me, can you make some room for me, please? I asked Tom Dinkins, who was sitting next to Dylan. Tom Dinkins looks at Dylan. You heard the man. Move over, Dink, says Dylan. Then he laughs and snaps his head back to shake the hair out of his eyes, Bollywood style. I wonder if Amma would have ever let me grow my hair out like that. Tom Dinkins moves over, and I sit down on the bench next to Dylan. I place my plastic tray in front of me, unbuckle the lid, open the top compartment of my tiffin box, and transfer the creamy white ratya into one of the small square sections of my tray. I smile. Finally, I am where I belong.